circling. We're live.
We're live.
There you
Enjoy.
go.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much for coming. This is the HWRSD Technology Subcommittee. It is 5 o'clock, Monday, December 11th. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, so we had discussions about this at the school committee meeting last week, but I was feeling a little lost, so I wanted to just come back to the camera system. And did we ever have a chance to get any reply from the folks that worked at WMS?
We're hopefully meeting with them next week. Mike's scheduling a meeting for us. We'll touch base with them next week.
And then are we looking at like talking to them about like anything and everything?
Full on hub and spoke. Minijog is the hub, right? So if we didn't get the money for cameras this time around, so I think everybody's sort of direction was, let's look for the whole enchilada. Like let's look at making Minijog the hub, right, and everything. WMS would immediately tag on as the hub, and then as we do other schools, right, they would each tag on as spokes, right, spokes on the hub.
Right, and then they can provide us guidance with regards to, which systems, because I mean, again, I look at, camera systems as kind of like, the VHS versus Beta. Yeah. Right, where you get some camera systems and how they're made, and they did really well, and then you have the Betamax that sort of fell off the face of the planet. And,
right.
So I just want to make sure that that going into this for the long distance, we have a and then the cameras that we have. So we have 140 cameras. How many do we have? Any that are inoperable at this point in the school?
I don't know how many are inoperable. Certainly a handful. I'm going to say maybe upwards of 10 that are solidly inoperable.
Okay.
We did have the company come out and they've looked at adjusting some cameras. So we've had situations where when the cameras were put in, there was a tree that was here and now it's here and it's blocked. Other cameras that maybe don't have the angle we want anymore. So we've done some of those adjustments. Those happened a couple weeks ago.
Okay. Now, do you have to have the company come out to do those, or?
In some cases, literally raising them, looking at what we can do to change.
Oh, so you have to move them on a position on the wall.
Yeah, sometimes we have to move it on a position on a wall or something like that, yeah.
Okay, all right, and so they're gonna talk to them about the whole enchilada to do, okay. All right, so I think that's a smart move, especially knowing that, if we can get that for another 10 years, that's a big thing off of our plate.
Exactly. A couple of cents. That works. So if we're at a point in time, again, I don't know anything, I've not seen any specs on the cameras, anything on the system, but we're at a point in time where technology is changing. And a lot of the older companies that have been around for a lot of years are not moving to the newer technology because they make a lot of money selling the older stuff. And a lot of that stuff also involves like AI, like even all these cheap things I buy, it tells the difference between a dog and a person. It can actually identify what people are doing and then send things back. This is cheap. This is like, I pay $100 a year for my Blink system. I got 20 cameras, and not saying it's this kind of system, but there's what is the spec of a camera? I can zoom in. It's huge. I mean, the lenses of these things that are like $30 a camera. I have no idea what you're looking at, but there is a change in technology, and sometimes the newer companies, you read what's coming, especially with AI. It's going to change fast, and what we're investing in. Are we investing in the older companies? Like, I still have an old company in my house. I want to get rid of them because they just don't fire. But the stuff that they put in is just so old technology. Misses the dog for the people and everything else.
So, and I'm sure the company will help us out with that. But when you get into systems like this, I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So at this point, this is stuff that has to go out to bid. So you have.
So if we go with the company that did WMS, they're on state contract.
Okay. But I'm saying, so the companies
don't necessarily have to.
Right, but you can't.
It's like ITT-40, isn't that the one that's the cameras?
But these are these companies have to be on these gotta be vetted through the state. Like, you
Yeah.
can't go out and just call Bob's AV Systems and Service.
No, you can, but if you go that route, then you're gonna have to go for the, you have to get 3 different quotes, and you have to go through that whole system, or you can just buy off the state contract.
But that's not necessarily always the newest and best, because people
You know, I don't know.
get state contracts a long time ago.
So, well, I don't know, I guess it would just depend on, you know, what they have, and then the other thing that I talked about before is, you know, if we can, you know, identify 3 or 4 districts that have built new high schools in the last year, and, you know, call them up and say, hey, what did you guys use for your camera system, just curious. Because, you know, you may have different vendors, different ideas, and, I mean, when it comes to AV stuff, I am by far the smartest person in the room. I'm open to any ideas that we have that would make it more dependable, less expensive, and, you know, and more user-friendly. So, I don't know, if there's folks out there in TV land that, you know, have that they know that there are better systems out there that we can get onto. And I don't, like, do companies...
The caveat is we're kind of following guidance from Wilbraham Police in terms of systems.
Yeah.
So they're very much, in order for them to be able to talk
sync up with us.
Right? They're looking at a system called a Vigilon. They're one of the big sort of camera security people nationally.
Yeah.
And you know, there's various companies that are, so Collins Electric is the ones who did WMS. They're authorized to install a Vigilon systems.
So, I guess I have, go ahead, John.
So that raises a question for me. Is there some point at which there was a price differential such that the school committee or the towns wouldn't want us to sync up?
Mm-hmm.
It was 50% of the cost.
Right.
I was just gonna ask because, you know, like, it's great that we have the compatibility. The question is, you know, we have 140 cameras plus, how many at the middle school? Another 60?
Couldn't tell you, probably, 60.
60? So there's 200 cameras, then you put 30 in each school. So you're looking at upwards of maybe 400 cameras in this whole system. Right? And we're using this system that the police department says that they can link up to. I mean, at what point do we say, you know, if there's a huge price difference, do we say, listen, like, you guys are gonna have to invest some money into this on your end because like we can put in this camera system for, you know, for $2 million less, and you can spend $30,000 on a software pack. So like I said, I don't know that much about it.
We could try looking at some other systems. I mean, we could put when we could kind of put it out. I mean, you know, with the intent that.
But Bill, I mean, how, like, if on a scale of 1 to 10, like, where are you on this, like, in terms of knowledge? Because I'm at 1.
I've been compiling a little bit of info. I know Rich posed a question last meeting about home cameras versus enterprise cameras, so I did a little bit of that research.
Okay.
Vigilon is not the only player in the camera game. There are other vendors. I mean, but it was preference that, you know, we kind of went with that system. So Rich brought up a good point about the AI. It's definitely shifting more toward that, where these systems are smart. You know, it can, you know, detect what it is and if it needs to record things or not. But you know, in terms of
in terms of consultancy, I know that I've been a vocal opponent of doing a physical plant consultancy for this building. I don't think the physical plant needs would necessarily qualify. However, on the flip side, I think that the technology IT piece, I think a consultancy would be extremely valuable. Sean, what do you think?
So, I kind of, I'm leaning more towards what Rich Rediker was saying about let's go with the newest and the best, right? So, seriously, if we sit down there and let's say the blink camera, right, that Rich brought out. No, I'm saying it, right? So, we get a bunch of those cameras in here. We can probably buy 10 times more blink cameras than we can this Vigilon, right? And have access and I don't know how much space it would take or bandwidth it would take to be able to record these, but we could have cameras everywhere. And then if something fails, throw it away, get a new one. Because you're talking, they're just so cheap. I mean, it's not like, you know, it's not like we're in a jail, you know, it's not like where you know, prisoners can break the cameras and stuff and you have to have these super whatever. So I really think that maybe we need to go away from the visual on, maybe we need to go away from this thinking of like, hey, these are cameras. Cameras are like cars. As soon as you buy the car, you drive it off the lot, it's worth a lot less than it was when you got it, right? These cameras, the same thing. Whatever system you put up, hey, that's the newest and the best today. 5 years later, it's not going to be new. It's not going to be the best, and you're going to have to replace it. Now, I'm not saying 5 years, 10 years, whatever, but I'm saying I'd rather replace a bunch of Blink cameras than a bunch of Visualon cameras, you know? So, I mean, are any other schools doing this? Are any other schools using the cheap cameras? You know, is that an option out there? Because I'm telling you, man, that would really help on the budget if instead of us spending $1 million on a system, that we can get a system in here for $10,000-$20,000 that just rocks coverage.
Yeah, I'm not selling the Blink system at all, but I would say in terms of, you think about what a camera is, it's a lens. Those things they're all the same now. What you're doing, you're connecting this to some software. The software is where the money is. There's also a server, but almost any camera should be able to connect. If things are built right, they talk to each other. And that's the first thing I'd like to say with the police system. When you say it ties in, I'd always like to ask what specifically ties in. What are we giving them the ability to do? For example, if you're at a police thing and you've got 400 cameras, you can't look at 400 cameras at once. You know, do you have the police cameras here and then you can have another monitor with our cameras over here? I mean, do they all have to be on the same physical term? What exactly is tying in mean? What are they getting out of it? And then what do you do here? For example, you have cameras in the hall. Do they record all the time, or do they record just when there's motion, or do they record just in certain, and also, do you right now, do the cameras have the ability to like swing and turn and move and things like that too? It just, again, I don't know what you really have.
I believe the answer to those last two questions are all the time, and no, they can't move.
No, static motion, but they were always run.
So
And then
they're,
there's
so
a
they're
limited-
recording when nothing's happening.
Yes,
Yes.
and then there's a limited amount of time that you have. What's the window that you have? That it keeps the recording.
It kind of varies by school. We actually don't even have a standard for how long we keep it, but no longer than 30 days.
I think it's right around there.
Is that a rule, or is that just a limitation?
No, that's
Just limitation of the storage.
Now,
right? So
the question,
that's
of course,
conversation we need to
in
have.
the new systems, you know, I could do it, that they only record when there's motion. Even I had a moth in my basement last night. I kept making all these recordings. But other than that, there's nothing. I mean, it's just static. If there's nothing happening,
Right.
why bother recording and using bandwidth? And then the fact that some of the newer software, again, it's using the same old cameras, some of the newer software can detect different things and different items and different events. It can say, we heard a dog barking. Okay, ignore that. We heard a person talking. You know, we heard, so it's hearing. These things all have speakers too. I assume yours have speakers, I mean, microphones and speakers?
So I
We
mean,
don't have sound.
I don't believe
You
you
can't
can
legally
use
record
sound.
sound in the
Yeah.
state of Massachusetts.
That's interesting. It's not only on these little cameras for like so cheap, I can talk to my dog too, say no dog. You can actually talk to the guy at the front door of your house right through that system just by pressing a thing on my phone. And you know, if somebody wants to get into your house, I can then open up the door remotely.
So the question, so we're talking about the Blink system, we're talking about basically like, really, I think two different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I would really be interested to know like what's in the middle. I'd like to know like what is really the like what is the panoply of systems that's out there, and what would can we make an intelligent choice based on looking at the affordability, the accessibility, and the reliability of the system, because I think those are probably the three things that we're most concerned about. And like like I said, I mean, I will be the first one to tell you what I know about those camera systems you can fit on the head of this pin. So I would say that we can. I didn't even know how to go about doing that, which is why I was saying, I know we talked about doing a consultant to come in to consult on tech. I mean, if we talk to the people at Collins, I don't know how much more information they would have, but
Yeah,
I certainly,
that can be part of the conversation.
And also, the consultants are they reading ahead, thinking of the future? Are these consultants consulting based on their 20-year-old knowledge of the way things always have been in the past? By the way, Google Nest systems are probably, I would say, those cameras are a smidgen ahead of the Blink cameras. Again, they're a similar type thing. And they also have limitations, like you have to put so many on a little module, and then those transmit to bigger modules. But even with the other systems you have, it's really saying, you have a physical camera, but are we buying the software, are we buying, what are they charging us for?
so
A lot of it is that.
are I'm assuming every camera in this building is hardwired.
Yes.
Yeah,
Alright, so, I mean, the reliability of hard wiring, I think, is probably more important. I would say that, you know, the way that
also too, I mean, if there's a fire, or if there's an incident, or sprinklers go off, or whatever,
Right.
you know, I want a camera that's gonna keep on recording.
Okay, yeah, you can say anything to record for as long as you want, with motion, with anything happening with sound. But I'm just saying, again, I'm not an expert in this, that hardwire, first, there's two things. There's hardwire plug-in electricity. There's hardwire, it runs on, some of these run on batteries for 2 years. You can put them on a pole in the parking lot, and they'll be good for 2 years.
I thought they ran on like Cat6 cables, right?
They're usually on PoE.
And then, but
PoE.
But you think about what we're relying our, you know, you talk about our new Wi-Fi structure. Wi-Fi is pretty darn reliable. In fact, you can cut a cable, you're not really cutting the Wi-Fi. So in other words, not that I have a study or know of it, but I would think that if things are all hooked up to your Wi-Fi structure, that's pretty reliable. I mean, how often does it go down? You know, you got the internet, you got cables that can happen. We once had a big problem in
Well,
school.
if we don't update the access points of the controller, I mean, it could basically shut the entire
It's the
system
same thing,
down.
you know, but of course it's multiple. We once had this problem with the school. I couldn't believe it the other, everything kept crashing, messing up and all that stuff. This is the olden days. And we couldn't solve it, you know, well, we're doing this. We actually got that the software always went down during passing. And it turns out all the kids are running in the hall and it's like hitting a loose wire in the hall. This took forever to figure that one out. And so it's during passing time, a wire being loose, you know, things like that happen. You don't have that with a mouse eating through things. I've had that happen too. So you don't have that with Wi-Fi. So there's, no matter what you look at, there's different kinds of pluses and minuses.
Yeah, but Wi-Fi can be blocked easily. You
so
can go and you can jam Wi-Fi, but you can't jam Cat5 cable necessarily, you know.
So I would say, let's talk, this is interesting conversation is what I wanted to bring up, but I would say like, let's talk to Collins, and when you talk to him, just say, you know, can you guys give us an idea like the scope of what's out there? And if you're not comfortable with it, can you point us in the direction of somebody that might be able to come in? Because I think it would be worth a little bit of money to have them come in and basically give us a full picture of what we're looking at in terms of camera systems before we go investing a ton of money into, because I'm in Sean's camp on this. I mean, if we can get something that's cheaper and just as reliable, there's no reason why we shouldn't do it. Now, if it doesn't integrate with what the police department has, then maybe it's just a conversation with the police department to say, hey, here's what you guys need to do to be able to link up with us. Because I don't know, I mean, that, you always have to wonder about the agenda of the person that's pushing the system, right? You know, are they getting, you know, are they getting a commission on that? You know, do they, you know, whatever. So I would be interested to see though, because like I said, I don't know much about it, and I would welcome any information that we can have to kind of give us an idea.
On Cat5, depending upon the signals you're sending, there are limits in, you know, how far it can go. So you've got repeaters, you've got switches, you've got all kinds of things. And I think it's just that to find a problem with Wi-Fi, with all these kinds of tools you have, is way easier than finding what you have in the wall, the wire that's messed up here,
Well,
this connector.
What's the limit of Cat5? Is it
330 feet.
330 feet? Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, and you might be looking at, you know, something of a hybrid too, right? So you may have some, some static wired cameras that are sort of your base cameras, but then some variable Wi-Fi enabled cameras. I don't see
where the most action is, where you need it.
And to figure out like where it's, you know, where these cameras are most useful. So
if we're open to other than a Vigilon, you know, I kind of been of the presumption that we were, I mean, obviously Rich had the Blink camera thoughts, but I kind of thought that you know, the real push was to kind of follow what the Wilbraham Police was suggesting. I mean, we can see who else is on, say, the state contract list, we can look at some national vendors and see what our options are and talk to a couple different companies. I mean,
I'd say start with Collins first.
yeah, I mean, Collins is gonna be an Avigilon vendor, so
Right.
they're probably gonna be pushing Avigilon, right?
But you talk-
Who else can we, who else?
Well, you say to him, hey, listen, you know, this, it's great, you know, but, you know, we're kind of looking at another, we're trying to figure out some other options, and, you know, just.
Yeah, there's just no reason for us not to talk, if we're open to that, to not talk to other state contract vendors, because, you know, that takes the bidding process out. We can choose them, you know, qualitatively, we can choose them price, we can choose them on a number of different factors, without having to worry about doing a formal RFP or what have you.
I just wanna make sure, like, the Avigilon system, that's what the police use, I'm all for that, right? But as Rich Rediker had said, you know, there's so much newer out that's really great, and we should at least know what's out there, know what we potentially have, and then what are we giving up? You
Well, what's
know,
the
and
compatibility
such.
issue? The way I see it is just, you
Yeah.
know, they're saying that this is what their system is compatible with these cameras, but what is that? I have no idea what that means.
Bingo, what does it mean? What is
What
compatibility?
does that mean? Does it compatibility mean that they just don't have, they just don't need to have, they have access to it? They don't have access to it? I mean, I've got security cameras in my 3 offices, and I mean, I have access to all of those cameras. I mean, it wasn't any harder than putting an app on my phone.
Most
so.
of it's the software.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really that's the backbone of everything you're doing nowadays. And, you know, the idea is they could pull it up and literally have an icon for, you know, HWRSD, and then be able to pull up, you
So
know,
I figure-
window for the school, so.
Yeah, so I figure we're heading into December. I mean, the next town meeting isn't until May, right? So we're not gonna be asking for this until then. It's gonna be a separate article on the warrant. So, you know, it'll have to be on the warrant, it's financial, so it'd have to be on the warrant 45. So
Yeah.
same as the
Yeah,
same
we
as
need
the
it-
budget.
we need it by March.
So we need it by March. So we have some time to play with on this. I don't wanna put it on the back burner, but I wanna say, let's, you know,
We can always
let's.
have a
so
number as a
let's-
placeholder depending on where
Let's
we
get
end
it,
up.
but let's get some, you know, I'd say, if we're gonna replace the whole system, we should really open up our view box and start looking at, you know, what's the whole
The
landscape?
question also is what our purpose is, and because there's multiple purposes for these things. But one of the things that's interesting is that you can, I mean, in Massachusetts law, you can't record sound, but you can record like a kid beating somebody, but you can't record the guy saying, I can't read, like in George Floyd's.
Sound is
Yeah,
considered a
that's
more
state law.
intrusive form of
Yes, it is.
Whereas
surveillance.
visual isn't?
You need dual
Yeah.
consent to record
Yes, you do.
people
And not
verbally.
video, it's
We're a
interesting.
dual consent state.
Interesting. So, but the other things with sound, are we trying more to break into the building, or are we looking at more for, you know, kids, you know, misbehaving at kids or things in the hallway?
Really, I think 100% of what we're using it for right now are
Investigation.
behavioral
Investigation.
investigations, okay? There is that potential chance, that 1% chance, which is everything, that an event would happen, that we would really need the cameras to protect our children so that the police would know what's going on inside the building. But like I said, that is extremely important, but extremely small probability that we would need it.
Because AI things, also like even now, the $15 Lexus, they do it by sound. In other words, if at nighttime there's any unusual sound, you know, they alert you, you know, no matter what it is, they know glass sounds, they know all kinds of sounds that might be tied with AI to people breaking into a building. So there's things that they're not recording here, but it's just, those are sound receptors that alert you for things like that.
Oh, my Amazon Alexa lets me know when the dogs are barking.
Yeah, all
or
that stuff, you ask for,
if
yeah.
Nicholas is coughing, or someone calls you anywhere, we have them in every room.
You can know about
It'll
fighting
tell
too,
me
yeah.
if someone in this room is coughing and whatever, in the middle of the night, it alerts us. We get up and go
Right.
check it out.
There's all kinds of AI, so it's really,
Pretty-
whatever we pick, it's what where they see the future.
Yeah, we can't use Amazon Alexas here.
No, I'm not saying, yeah, I'm saying it's where what do they see in the
Confident
future?
that
It's AI.
The same reason we can't record sound, I don't believe we can have our
Monitor.
cameras use sound to monitor either. So
Right.
we can't do an Amazon, we can't do a dog barking, we can't do a person saying something.
It's
I
gotta-
mean, again, you could have motion, you're correct on that. in
Think
terms of
Charlie
bandwidth
Chaplin.
And safe.
Yeah.
Think like D.W.
Yeah, but you still say with motion though, like for recording, nothing
Yeah, we
happens,
certainly
that's such
could
a
look at
waste.
motion, yeah.
Because Because that's how they got, for streaming, this was the great thing with streaming video, is that they're actually keeping all your pixels. If the pixel stays the same, it doesn't send it again. So that really sped up how you can stream video.
Yeah.
Why send the same pixel over and over, which is causing choppiness and
Yeah.
things over the internet? So why record things that are the same?
Alright, so I think so we can just kind of open up our horizons on that. If you need us to do any legwork, just let us
Yeah,
know,
yeah, we'll-
alright, because
we'll-
we can make phone calls for, I don't wanna offload all this on you,
No,
so
we can
if
talk.
you can get us even if you get us the names of, some of the schools,
Mhm.
some of the districts
Yeah,
that have
we can
done,
reach
recent construction
Mhm.
projects, especially at the high school level,
Yeah.
I'm happy to call them.
Back in the day, I did sell this stuff, so, I mean,
But you know nothing about it.
language and whatever, yeah, I'm just saying, so if you do need some help on something like that, I can reach out and get some contacts and get you some people to talk to, whatever, or I can, whatever you need.
Yeah,
The
I-
school business administrator mailing list, I'll reach out along that and see if
Yeah.
anybody's put in
Yeah.
camera systems recently, whether new or
Good.
existing, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
new schools or existing
Yeah.
schools.
Let's just open up our eyes to everything, all the possibilities, and then we can
Fair
kind of narrow it down from there.
Yep.
All right, good. So, next was, and we all set with cameras, we good with that?
Mhm.
I
Next-
think just going back to the last comment, is I thought your idea of hybrid is good. Certain places you have one kind of camera, others where you just need to moderate for certain things. You can throw cheap things into where it could be kids' behavior and stuff. So there's
Yeah, when you have some variability too with the cameras, right? So if you have like the wireless cameras, then it doesn't really matter, you don't need a wire, you can
Yeah.
move them and shift them as you need to.
Fair enough.
Whereas the wired cameras, like I would imagine those cameras would be covering your points of ingress, egress, stairwells, areas where areas where you just need sort of a broad image of what's happening. So, all right, so next up, because I know we're gonna go to town meeting with this, so I wanted to make sure that we had Chromebooks and then the wireless access points, and just make sure we were all on the same page on that. So Chromebooks for next year, what are we looking at in terms of numbers?
So I mean, we're looking about to keep,
900?
900, no,
900?
Chromebooks?
Yeah.
To keep middle school and high school at 1-to-1, we're looking at about 450 Chromebooks.
Okay.
So, 225.
What's your replacement cycles once every 5 years?
Yeah, I
6
mean,
years?
once every 5 years, give or take. The intent would be to migrate, so middle school, call it 6, 7, 8, right?
Yeah.
Give or take, and then high school's 4 years. So we'd get 1 more year out of a high school Chromebook, 2 more years out of middle school. Just you could flex it any way you want.
Okay.
The intent would be to then migrate those Chromebooks to carts at the elementary schools once they're migrating out of the high school, or the middle school or the high school.
Right.
To get a little more life out of them. That might mean we pick up a few more here and there from time to time, but the big purchase would probably be that 450 or so. We'd be talking about
90,000.
160 grand a year.
160,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that would be, a year every year. And a lot like Mark Ducey who talked about it being very similar to police cruisers, right? They're buying those every year.
Yeah.
We're gonna buy these every year,
Right.
right? We need to kind of,
Mark also said that this really should be adjustment to the school budget rather than
Yeah.
capital,
Yeah, he did say, it was weird because, yeah,
because it's gonna be permanent.
right,
It's a recurring expense, right? It's like a salary.
yeah.
It's like
and we'll line that out. That'll be an entirely separate line.
Yep.
450 Chromebooks, X dollars.
Yeah.
We'll probably have a technology section, a new
Mhm.
technology section. And we'll highlight, we'll also talk about replacement of things like projectors. That'll be smaller potatoes, but an annual replacement of X number
Yeah.
of projectors district-wide, not just
Okay.
here, but the whole district.
So why do the Chromebooks failing? Are they just wearing out, or the technology's getting old, or why are they being replaced?
all of the above, I think.
Software support mostly. Chrome will stop supporting it after about 5 years, give or take.
So is that particular computer is then, it's not broken?
No, it's
What's
not,
this?
it's not necessarily completely,
Useless.
unfunctional, but at about 5 years, that's where you're getting to the end of the useful life. You can drag a Chromebook out another year probably, I mean, like you do with
For
any-
educational
But at
stuff.
some point, it's there's gonna be so many security issues with it, that it's just unsafe to keep.
And your software updates from your vendors that are providing the educational services, they're gonna be written to basically be run by an up-to-date operating system.
Hey, you can-
Once your operating system runs out of
Specs,
date,
yeah.
then your software's not gonna
Processing
function as it would.
speed, stuff like
Well,
that.
I mean, I'm just looking at, in the older days, I used to replace my computer every single year. I mean, twice a year, you know, as the technology went like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Now, my computer at home, it's unbelievable, it's a 2014, but I bought it best I could get back then. It's still fast, it's still reliable. You know, I keep up to all the updates are still there. So in other words, it comes to a point where at the beginning, I could get a faster computer, and what took 26 hours would take 13, and then it would take 6. Then it gets down to 2 seconds to 1 second to a half a second to a quarter of a second, that you're not gaining much in terms of the technology, and they can be updated if you have minimal requirements in 2014. If I bought an older computer back then,
Right.
Windows 11 wouldn't be compatible because it wouldn't have the specs,
But unless you're constantly installing and using
Oh, that's
updated
just automatic.
software, that's, you know, you can have, you can run Windows 7, you know, just to do
Windows 6
basic,
is kind of-
just to do basic stuff. I mean, if you're just doing word processing and, you know, and just basic computer stuff, but if you're not putting any new software, it's when you add new
I
stuff.
believe they have the
onto it.
latest.
The
and
other
best
thing to
stuff.
recognize, that Chromebook is almost like an old-fashioned dummy terminal,
It
right?
is, yes.
It doesn't, it's a
Low-
thin,
low
you know,
power.
very thin quality. Most everything runs, you know, from the home server. Once that software stops working, right, once they stop allowing you to use
Updates.
that software, things stop working.
And for
Quite
simplicity, I mean, I was always kind of back in the day, you know, not wanting Chromebooks per se, because of just what you said. But for simplicity, is that why we go to that they're easier to maintain, easier to keep them up to date for the kids?
Very
As
managed,
opposed to a,
managed device,
Yeah.
and we keep in line with the MCAS testing, that's a big component for us, so they oftentimes determine, okay, we're not gonna support any longer
Right.
than this long. So that's usually our driving factor, we look at the testing requirements.
Yeah.
If I recall, many of our Chromebooks are of a similar vintage because we started our program during COVID, is that correct?
Yeah,
We bought
yeah.
all of
We
them.
bought 900,
900.
well, we bought,
Few
it
big
must have been
purchases.
about 500 before I started, and then 900 after I started.
So breaking this up will be a way to be a little bit
that's
proactive.
the idea.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all your devices are gonna die
At once,
You're gonna have
right.
to do another 900 purchases.
But the point I was making is that to sit there and say every 4 years we're gonna do it, I think with technology changing, that it's actually gets longer and longer. The
Yeah, if you have
technology's
another-
much better, they last longer, they're more compatible, you're not getting that much more specs unless it's physical wear and tear.
Yeah, when you have a bunch of kids, you know.
Yes.
Given-
I had my computer, a laptop, touchscreen, everything like that, I had it for 4 years, never had a scratch on it, I gave it to my son, now the screen's
Yeah.
broken and whatever,
Yeah.
and it's just like.
So there is
And
that.
he does treat it well, but he's, you know, 11.
But to say that every 4 years you do it, maybe now it's every 4 years, but technology's getting better, computers are getting better built. I mean, in the olden days, a hard drive wouldn't even last you 6 months without crashing.
But I don't even see like, and I don't know,
But planned obsolescence comes
Yes.
into play as well though, so much like, you know, you hear the issues with Apple and charge times and support. That's what we run
Batteries,
into,
yeah.
we run into support issues. They won't support it after a certain point, and they kind of decide that we don't get to. And once they stop supporting it, they stop doing security patches, and I'm sorry, Bill, I'm jumping on your area.
No, you're good.
They
I
stop
mean,
doing security patches and we get more and more insecure, right?
alright. So Bill, let me ask you a question. So
Yeah.
coming down the road, right, so we've been on the Chromebook path for 6, 7, 8 years, right?
Since COVID, pretty much.
So do we see anything, like, is there something out, like, right now, it seems like Chrome kinda has the corner on the market.
Education.
So
Yeah.
affordable.
Is there, you know, is there anything that we see that could potentially come up as being a less expensive competitor?
Amazon Fire Tablet coming out.
Let's come out.
Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
The
So,
only other,
yeah, I mean, but it's a good question, you know, and it's, again, from the
What's a
tech
Chromebook
side.
cost nowadays, like the ones we're buying?
$350.
Yeah,
We're
around
not gonna get a
300
Windows
bucks,
PC for
350.
that.
The other thing that I've seen is much smaller number of schools use is Apple. I mean, and those are double the price, but you're gonna get, 8 years on those, maybe?
If they don't break.
You know, it's a whole different setup, much more, they focus more on backward compatibility, things like that.
You talking
It's a choice.
iPads?
Yeah.
Yeah, iPads or some use actual Apple laptops.
And did-
but-
And I know that when we were in COVID, we did this, I don't know if we're still doing it, but we looked at doing collaborative purchasing through
Yeah.
the Lower Pioneer Valley. Have we,
I think we did some, didn't we? Didn't it
I
actually
think
work?
we did that, we talked
So-
about it,
so
I don't
we're
know if we ever
on-
did.
I mean, we're on, everything we get is off of either state contract, which is all collaborative, or through national contracts. So our
Okay.
latest, we actually got a really good deal through a national contract we're part of,
Okay.
collaborative purchasing. I think it's the PEPM contract, there's, for Omnia partners, there's 3 or 4 big, Omnia is, Amazon's on Omnia. There's 3 or 4 really big national contracts.
Okay.
and
That are
so
driving
you get
the price
You
to-
get very aggressive pricing on those.
Oh, good, okay.
So we got it through a company called Bloom,
Mhm.
you know, and
Trifera as well.
they were pretty good. Actually, our rep from Trifera that we got our big order from, the 900, moved to Bloom and kind of called us. We said, well, you gotta be on a state contract, and
Yeah.
they were on a national contract. We looked into it, and they were incredibly competitive, so.
Okay, alright, good. So we continue to find the lowest price for those,
Yeah.
and I didn't know if there was anything new coming on the horizon, but it seems to me like that, I mean, that, it pretty much cornered the market, at least in
Yeah.
Massachusetts. So, alright, and then, so Chromebooks, 450, that's just a recurring expense, but at 450, looking at the numbers, I mean,
Wait, for
450 a year for order, like,
about 160,000 a year.
no, I'm saying
450
units,
yes.
yeah, so
Yeah.
450 units, I mean, that's gonna basically, I mean, look at the numbers in the high school, I
Mhm.
mean, that's gonna put, most kids are gonna have a year 1, year 2 machine then, right?
Yeah.
So, and those go kinda seniors to freshmen, I'm assuming?
Well, they get it as a freshman, and they carry it.
They
with
carry it
them
all the way
throughout.
through?
Yeah, they
Okay.
carry it through, yeah.
Alright,
6 and 9.
alright,
So would this be, if the 8th grade moves to the high school, they'll get a computer in 8th grade, or they'll get a computer in
So
9th grade?
that's a good question.
We need to look at that. So, you know, we kind of had initially figured that, you know, the Chromebooks, 4 years is Chromebook's still gonna be pretty good, doing a lot of the same stuff. So initially we thought 6, 7, 8, then they turn it in, we get them a new one in 9th grade and they carry that through. Now if 8th grade moves, we may need to move the cutoff, right, and switch that out a little bit. So it might be they keep it, we just do the transition in 9th grade when they're in the high school.
I was just gonna say, does it really matter, I mean, I think you can keep the transition exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
6, 7, and 8, and then they get a new one when they go to high school, I think that's,
It's completely academic,
because they're
yeah.
physically here, doesn't necessarily mean that we need to change the transition time, because,
Absolutely.
alright,
Yeah, one last factor with the Chromebooks is, you know, we only buy a certain amount of warranty, which is damage protection.
Yep.
So, once that expires, then we're on the hook to having to repair it ourselves. So, you know, Aaron and I, we looked at that, you know,
well, we had talked about that 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and we had talked about self-insuring when machines break.
Yeah.
What's our experience with that in the last 2 years? So nobody really did it.
No, we had no one really
Nobody
sign
bid on
up, almost no one signed up.
Right,
I think
so.
we had 1 or 2 people sign up.
So what are we looking at in terms of, so when a kid comes in, he's got a broken screen on his Chromebook, are we assessing the family with the cost of repairing the Chromebook?
so if it's under, you know, warranty,
No.
we cover, oh. if it's
But
not
what if
under-
it's not under warranty?
Typically, we have enough overage that we can swap it out.
But we would still charge them if it's
Yeah.
not, if it's not under warranty.
We
Okay.
don't hold them
But
up.
almost all of our Chromebooks for 1-to-1 are under warranty at this point.
Yes.
Okay, alright,
Yeah,
How long is
under
the
that.
warranty?
So we've been doing 4 years.
There's a cost for that, right, obviously.
They don't break it out, they include it in the cost, the whole,
Because of $300.
yeah.
so based on the volume of warranty claims that you guys are making, is it financially prudent to buy 4 years of coverage? I mean, are you guys seeing that much in terms of warranty work?
Yes.
Okay, well then that solves that problem.
So as soon as you put it in your book bag and take it home and, you know,
Okay,
there's
If I can ask, we give a life expectancy of 5 years.
Yeah.
So is there a reason why we're not going 5 years on the warranty? Cost prohibitive, or?
generally,
Yeah, I mean, no particular reason, I guess. I mean,
I would imagine in year 5 though, that cost is, if they're looking, I mean, Chromebook's probably saying 3 to 4 years, like that's where they want to draw the line. So if you go that 5th year, I have a feeling the cost per machine
So
will go up.
our one-to-one program doesn't last more than 4 years, right? 9, 10, 11, 12, right? Once those come back and they're part of, say, what we're gonna send to the elementary schools, there's a lot more control over how those are used, right? They're not taking them home in a book bag with them. They're not, knocking around the little brother or sister with them, whatever. They're, you're taking them off of a cart, opening them, using them.
What kind of family did you grow up with that they're feeding you with the computer?
I'm just saying, man. Sometimes
generally
it's
extended
good.
warranties are the worst
Every
out
family.
there for almost anything. Because the insurance company wants to make money on it. And unless it's highly unusual, how these kids are damaging him, usually it's a losing proposition.
Now, when it's kids though, it's a different.
But then they charge more money
When
for
it's
it.
me.
The insurance company's always gonna make their money. Whoever sells is
Sure.
gonna make their money.
Fair enough.
So with a big enough sample, it's much cheaper to do yourself.
Alright, so we're pretty much squared on that, that's already been built into the budget. And then finally, the wireless access point, so we come
Yeah.
back to that, I just wanna make sure that we're going to do the whole enchilada again with the wireless access points here, so we're gonna basically figure out what it's gonna take to like bring everything up to modern day specs.
Yep.
And then again, with an eye on the future. Like, I'd be interested to know, like, what do we see in the next 5 years? Is it gonna, do we know? I don't know, I mean, I
The
don't.
new ones are 7.
Who knows?
I just bought a 6, now it's 7, so obviously there's a lot of new technology out there, including where they use different bands to talk to each other as opposed to, tying things up when you're doing streaming. That's my
Right,
clothes,
well, no, and
stuff.
that's, right, all of that stuff, Rich, like that, again, to me, that's Greek. So, getting somebody who has some really, like, up-to-date knowledge on that and be able to say, I mean, think about all of those people back in, 2000, 2001, who built their houses running, network cable lines throughout their house and putting network jacks in their house, right? I have one of those houses, right? So I've got network cable connections in every single room in my house.
did it right then.
They did it right, but now it's,
Take my word for it, you did it right.
Yeah.
Well,
plug it in.
the new method, so like I connect my Roku by cable still, because I have the connection, so it's faster, for streaming. But now there's new technologies that actually use different bands to send things one direction to another direction, and it can make the streaming experience really good, like Cat 5. Obviously, if you have it, it's there, you gotta plug it in, but to ever put something like that in again is, a waste of time with the current technology.
And again, the company that does that, do we have somebody lined up for the wireless access points or that?
Those gonna,
Yeah, I've been working with a company, on the wireless.
So,
We've got quotes.
And again, so is that
What's
something that's gotta go out
brand that
for?
we're using?
Cisco.
No,
Cisco.
we've got, Bill's looked at a couple different vendors though, so I mean, we're not just taking a single vendor, we're looking, you've actually been through 2 separate companies for pieces of it, right? Or is it the same for everything?
Yeah, I mean, they're a state contract,
Yeah.
And we, and I say we as in the, not only the school committee, the members of this committee, but the people in the community, thank you for doing that diligence, because I think, going through and getting multiple options from multiple vendors and prices, I think is important to let us know that we're getting a fair deal.
Are there still problems, is everybody able to get on all the time without getting kicked off, or it's good speed?
So a lot of that stuff is very, I usually take it with a grain of salt, what is the real problem versus what is the problem with the device, But, I mean,
So I will tell you, there are some dead spots in this
there
building.
probably are.
There are dead spots, because I know I've tried to get a hold of Angelina sometimes, or Marissa, and it's like, oh, I didn't get your message.
So keep in mind, we don't allow student telephone, cell phones or anything on the wireless.
Right.
So when you say dead spot, you're talking cellular.
So, so cellular, but I imagine if it's cellular, I mean, there must be some, depending on where the WAPs are.
So we have them in every classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the
You
majority
could
of
have some dead spots
offices.
there.
No, you can have, you can have wireless coverage, you know, amazing wireless coverage, and then, like in my basement, my Wi-Fi works amazing, but my AT&T, I mean, I can't get it.
Can't get anything.
Yeah.
And
They-
yeah,
For sure, I mean,
Yeah.
TWB is that way right now.
right.
So are we talking cell phone coverage, I mean cellular tower coverage as opposed to,
that was actually, it wasn't on the agenda, but maybe we could just touch on it for a second. It was, at one time, weren't we in talks with Verizon about putting a tower on this building? I don't know, I mean, that predates you, Aaron, that's in,
If I
Howard
remember
years.
correctly,
I don't know whether they were, I mean, I
We
thought the
looked at
price,
it.
was the price ridiculously low?
but it was like, you know, a ham sandwich and a half
And
a
a cup
bag
of
of
coffee,
chips or
yeah.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, we looked at that in Palmer as well. They came to us in Palmer and it was such a, like, insanely low
We'll give you
amount of
$60 a
money.
year and have a pizza party.
Yeah.
and-
Oh, that's what it was. The
Yeah.
electricity would have cost more than what they were giving us for rent.
Yeah.
That's what we actually worked out.
Yeah, I
Yes.
don't remember.
Yeah, I remember, that's what it was.
Palmer being that
Howie
low,
was
but
like-
it was-
They're giving us like seriously like $60 a month, and for the electricity that it's gonna use, it's gonna cost us 65.
with Wi-Fi calling, if you're
It was
in a building,
also-
it covers that.
Yeah.
It also meant them drilling into the membrane of our roof,
Yes,
right? And when
yeah.
you're talking that kind of money, I'm like,
No,
I'm pretty good not drilling into the membrane of the roof for that
because
kind
the
of
roof
money.
is,
Yeah.
only so many years old.
We have a cement building in Hampton, and Verizon, before we had the Wi-Fi calling, did come in and put some kind of thing in our building in the
Mhm.
side so we can get cell phone coverage within the building.
Yeah.
Site
Verizon.
Peter, probably.
Yes, so in that case, but now with Wi-Fi calling, it kind of takes it. All over the world, there's 5 bars every place, you can be in the plains of Africa, 5 bars except for right here in Wilbraham and Hampton, going up that hill. It's
So,
about
so
as far
the,
behind as any place I've ever been.
so basically the big thing is so for the camera systems and the wireless access points, so those are separate items that will be articles on the warrant, so we just need to make sure that whenever town meeting is, let's count back 45 days and make sure we have those numbers, and those numbers
That'll
get
be
to,
part of our budget. I mean,
Yeah.
this past year, I had a separate section for Minichog capital items.
yeah, but then we
I'll have
can
the
run
same
that.
separate section.
I'd probably get those numbers sooner rather than later to make sure we get those to finance,
Of course.
right? So finance can go over those, cause I know there'll be some hyperventilation and panic attacks if you
Yeah.
present it late.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be presented, I mean, I can present those next week, literally. I mean, we have, cameras, we don't have a final number on, but Wi-Fi, we have a pretty solid number on, it's about 150,000. Cameras, we'll try to let them know, we'll try to have something, but we're talking in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's a fair starting place.
Are these wireless access points mostly for the Chromebooks? Is that the number one?
And staff devices and Chromebooks.
Yeah,
And I mean, they use them for,
yeah.
I mean, everything that they do, educationally speaking, is done on
But
that.
a kid
computer.
cannot take his cell phone and
But-
connect to the.
But all the teachers have laptops and they collaborate in various rooms, so it's not just, we have almost 1,000 Chromebooks, right? 800 and
So-
900 Chromebooks, 200 plus laptops, 300 laptops, give or
So now,
take.
I'm sorry to interrupt, so,
That's up.
so where did the projectors fit into like all of this? So, again, we're talking technology and, we're talking about WAPs, so Chromebooks, cameras, we're talking about, those projectors. And
Yeah.
where,
We will add projectors into our operating budget
okay,
to go alongside Chromebooks. That's kind of something I think we talked to with Mark Ducey
okay,
about, having a separate for the recurring technology items. We need to get on a replacement plan for our projectors.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so those are gonna be just recurring budget expenses.
Yeah, that'll be on our
right?
operating.
So that's gonna be, all right,
Or
so
that's what we'll propose to put in our operating budget. If they don't want to, if they change their mind, we'll put it right back on capital.
On
These are the
capital.
projectors in classrooms to show on screens.
Just like that.
Very similar to that short throw projector.
They have really changed and come way, 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 way down in price.
Well, I just have to,
Lasers now.
I just have to say
What was that?
They have laser projectors, they don't have lamps.
Oh,
They
great.
last a lot longer, the lamps don't go. The last one I just got, because I wanted like 3,000 lumens, so you could see in a bright room.
Very clear.
Yeah.
They're like $900 now.
We
They
have.
were 3,000 a few years ago.
They're a little more than 900, but yeah.
Yes,
We
I
just-
got you.
we just need to make sure that we have all of this stuff listed and that we have a paper trail that we have let people know about it. Because the worst thing that can happen is if we have these discussions and then we get to March and people are like, well, I didn't know you needed that. So I would make sure that we let people know, like when we start talking about projectors, I wanna know, how many projectors are we talking about district-wide? And what are we talking about in terms of a plan? So that we can talk real numbers, because when we go to finance and all of a sudden, you know, we've got an extra $260,000 put into our budget just for a cycle of projector replacements. I don't want people to be like, well, you didn't tell us it was gonna be that, because we've been through that before. People go, well, no, if we had known it was that much, we never would have told you.
So where are
to
the
do that.
projectors, why are the projectors failing, how many use?
They're each of the
They're
last
the
2 years.
age of the building, that's when they were put in.
And they use like all day, every day, or?
They, they use them regularly.
Yeah.
They're out of warranty now, you know,
Think
this
of-
model here.
Yeah,
It
think
doesn't
of,
matter if they're out of warranty, if they're still working, that's
Oh,
great.
yeah,
for sure, yeah.
Because I've never thrown
The
away.
town isn't like, well,
Right.
hey, what do you mean, it's, so it's not warranted, it's still working, so we just gotta be
Yeah.
careful on how we say it. We
No,
don't wanna
I
say that
understand.
we're replacing them because they're
Right.
10 years old, we have to say we're getting to replace them because they are getting, they are
the
having
end of their
problems.
usable life.
More and more problems every day we're having with them, so it's now getting to the point we need.
Because I've never thrown out a projector, I got something.
So we don't just, I mean, most of it is in-house, we've been repairing them, you know, and using parts from broken units and, you know, doing our due diligence, you know, as best we can. So I didn't include that part in it.
Just to throw this out there, I agree with Bill on half of this, when having a consultant coming in and saying, like, look, this is how much, you know, that, and this is what we think that you should, do, and the things that are coming due in the building that really need to get priority over replacement. You know, having a consultant come in here that basically looks at your work and says, yes, that works right on, and stuff like that really, really helps when we're talking about a significant amount of money, which is also why for the physical property too, I think it's important, because we're talking, you know, millions and millions of dollars over the next few years that need to be spent, and when you have someone that's backing up your expertise and our expertise and saying, you know, yes, we've checked it, we've been paid to check it, we've checked it, and we stand by that, and added to it. So it's a lot easier to go to the taxpayer when you say, we've had an independent consultant come in and look at this technology and information, and this is what they agree with, you know, that we agree with them, rather than just saying like, hey, you know, Bill Powers, yeah, this is what he says we need. You know, and then they're gonna be like, well,
That's who that consultant is.
we
If they're really
we
smart.
love Bill, but I mean, come on, you know?
Fair enough.
It all depends who that
And
guy
also,
is.
the APs that we're getting, right, the access points that we're getting, and Cisco, I mean, they have all different flavors, but we're getting a solid one, right? One that's gonna like, we're planning that we're gonna have to end up keeping these
Right.
APs for a lot
For a number
longer
of years,
than we
for sure.
really want to keep them, just because of how budgets roll. So I would suggest that if we have to pay a little more now to have a little more longevity, I would highly recommend that.
Yeah, I mean, wireless,
Yeah.
you know, we talked about standards, like, you know, Wi-Fi 7 is already out,
Right?
but typically that comes with a premium price point, so it's one or another, right? You
Right.
look at the most expensive ones or scale back just a little bit, that's what I try to approach
Get
things.
one generation less
One
Right.
generation less,
than cutting edge.
like when the newest
Spare
cell phone
two
comes
that
out,
are-
last year's model's a third the price.
Right.
And they work all the bugs out that way too.
It's fair to
75%.
say we're having to plan this 9 months out, and in the world of technology, that's an
That's-
eternity.
Right,
So
yeah.
really, we're just trying to plan for money, like by the time we actually get to doing this, which will
It'll be
be
reasonable.
July,
Wi-Fi 8 will be out.
a lot of things could change.
And Bill, just help me understand, so with the projectors, are the projectors pretty much plug and play for you? Like if you got, let's say that this projector died,
Yeah.
right, and you had to replace
You don't
it.
have to replace any of the wires or anything.
So
like
no,
that.
what we like to do is utilize the mounting system and then, you know, get a new bracket, you know, attach it to the new mounting, or the old mounting system, and, you know, it's,
As someone who has to hook up all over the district.
Yeah.
Can we get something that's Wi-Fi instead of having it plug in
So,
directly to it?
yes, that's what's Wi-Fi, right now, what they all do, that's one reason I just bought a new one,
Yeah.
is, that those big ones are kind of gone, you get one that's a quarter the size of that for the same brightness, you get, so we've actually replaced, so the bracket's the only thing that's out, you don't need that big bracket, but you probably can adapt it.
Yeah.
But now it's
Rubber
just
band
use
on it.
Control K, so it's just, you're projecting wirelessly to the thing, it's not Wi-Fi per se, it's
Yeah.
like how you can project to your TV, your Roku, it's called display. So I can do it right from my phone, I can do it right from my laptop, it's Windows K, you'll see the name of the
And
projector.
actually do all that, that's the bandwidth. So it's
It-
going,
it
that's
does.
going over your Wi-Fi system
As
as
soon
well,
as you
right?
start
Everything
adding
you're
on
sending.
to the Wi-Fi, so I wouldn't consider that for all the classrooms, but like if you have spaces,
But
where
it-
we-
No, it's
But
not
in
Wi-Fi.
terms of, but in terms of the, I'm just looking in terms of the simplicity, like I have no problems plugging them in, I understand, I mean, you're gonna suck up your bandwidth.
You understand that, like, when I go like this and I connect my phone to the
It's not Wi-Fi.
printer, it's not Wi-Fi. It's
Ah.
not Bluetooth either. It's,
No.
what is it? It's
No,
it's like a
it's-
display,
Right, it's a
Wi-Fi
display
direct
kind
connect,
of,
yeah.
so it's going, so you're
Right.
connecting to that, so you don't have to plug it into a HDMI cable to get it
To
up there.
get to there.
And that's just between here and there, it's doing nothing else, it's taking up no other bandwidth. And you can actually get a device really cheap for the old ones, plug it into the back, and it works the same way. So you can get a device for just $30 or $40 that plugs into the HDMI port. You can go then connect to it through your phone, so it upgrades that without the,
But
now
how,
the built-in.
like, to plug, I'm just asking you, so to get it, let's say that this thing died and you had to put a new one in. Like, let's say that you had one on hand, I mean, how much of an endeavor is it to actually do it?
Plug it in.
Because I'm thinking to myself, as I'm talking to Sean, and, you know, and Sean's saying, well, the town doesn't wanna hear this, I'm also thinking of the fact that if a computer does, I mean, if a projector does blow in a classroom.
replace it.
Right, but what's,
But if it's
what's
not
the-
blowing, leave it up there.
What's the turnover time, right? So maybe you
Oh, okay.
have, you know what I mean? So if the turnover time is, you know, is a couple of hours, right?
That's what we typically.
So it's down for the morning, we don't have the computer, well, by tomorrow it'll be up and running. So if that's the
Right.
case, you know, do you instead say, okay, so why don't we run a running inventory of, let's say, 5 replacement projectors, we have those on hand, so that as they
When they
blow,
break
yep, and then you just get a system down, and then you can run them that way. Now, if we run in, so if we keep that running inventory low, I mean, we shouldn't lose more than 4 or 5 in a week's time. What's the lead time on ordering them and getting them? So if we can figure that out,
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that varies. I know they had chip shortages and all that, and, you know,
They're available now.
that affected the projectors, you know.
Right. And this is one of the reasons why this is a little different, because we're dealing with a fleet,
yeah,
right? So at some point, we have to start realizing, we're gonna start losing units of our fleet, right? So
Yeah.
we can't just wait till things break. We know some number of them is
But
going
if
to
you-
break every year.
right, and
going
if you have
forward.
a stock, so I have
And
that
so
in mind.
we need to have a stock and call it some number
Right,
that we have district-wide that we can pop in, right?
correct,
The
so,
same with Chromebooks, the same with laptops, things
Right.
like that.
so what we have in our office is I have, you know, I have hand pieces that run when we do implants, right? So I have 3 handpiece motors, 3
Right.
sets of hand pieces in each office, and those are constantly being sterilized and redone. I also have a backup set in each office, because I know that if I lose one handpiece motor, I can still send that out to repair and I still bring another one in. But I know that the turnaround time for that handpiece motor is only gonna be a couple of days. So I know that I'll get that back in fast enough time period where it's not gonna affect me. The same thing with the projectors, the way that I see it is once we settle on a technology, and I would leave it to, you know, the tech guys to, you know, kind of go over that. If it's wireless, great, if it's something that's not gonna suck up bandwidth, great, I don't know, but I would say that whatever we settle on for technology, then let's get a few of those, let's put them on, you know, on the shelf, knowing that we are going to run into problems when these things blow, so we can change it out over the day that it's broken and then be up and running the next day. And I think that would be, I think that's the most economical way to address the fleet, as you said. We just need to make sure that our replacement time is not extended more than a day, and that we have enough in stock so that we don't run into a problem with a backlog of replacements and now we don't have enough machines to replace with.
We teach, I mean, it's not even 2 hours, we teach sessions, so if that thing went, I pulled another one out, I put it on the cart right there, and I'm up in 2 minutes. You know, just plug it into the wall, that's it.
A portable.
A portable one, and that's what, nowadays, the portable one's the kind you put up there, and when you get a chance, you attach it to the you know, the bracket up there. They're really, really easy. Just plug it into the power, turn it on, control Windows K, you're up and running in seconds, because we have sessions and classes going on all the time.
And I'm
Zero
sure,
time.
and I'm sure there's gonna be a procedure that goes along with that, right? Because I know when you introduce new technology, especially for some of our teachers that are, you know, less technologically savvy, introducing new technology would be like sitting them in front of a box that was filled with, you know, pythons, right? So, you know, we wanna make sure that we have, you know, if we do that, that there should be a written sheet of paper that tells them, okay, this is how you need to connect to this, you connect to your iPad.
We can do that.
I think that would be the most cost-effective way to do it, and also, you know, streamline the process. And we would then, if we had to, we could pull, let's say that we had a year in which we lost a whole bunch, let's say we lost like 10 more, and it was like $10,000 or $20,000 more. Then you can pull that money out of E&D, but then when you go back the next year and do your budget request, you can say, we had to pull this money out of E&D for these units, which was unanticipated.
But the portable ones now are bigger and brighter than those huge ones up there.
Oh, I know, some of the old like, we bought one years ago, I mean, it's,
Smaller and brighter.
Smaller.
yeah, you have, I mean,
That's
this
what I
thing,
meant,
it's-
smaller, brighter.
yeah, this thing, it has to be like completely dark, like no ambient light, otherwise you won't see anything. So,
All right,
Cool.
future schedule meetings. Can we go into January,
yes, we
because,
can.
you know, these next 2 weeks are really jam-packed.
You know
No
what?
sleep for me, and, yeah. Spend a day with me, Bill, spend a day.
I know, listen, I know exactly what it's like, 'cause I got people going, I gotta use my benefits by the end of the year.
January
Oh,
Right,
fifteenth.
yeah, right.
So yeah, let's go out.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm gonna be,
January
I'm
8th or January
I'm not gonna,
15th?
I'm gonna be gone, I'm gonna be here for the meeting, the 4th, I leave for the 5th and come back the 16th.
I like doing these meetings on the off weeks from the school committee meetings, just so it's not overbearing. So we have a school committee meeting.
Wait, Rich, you say you're out
I
of
said-
town?
I'm leaving from the 5th to
Yeah.
the 16th.
So that would be another reason not to do it on the 15th. How about if we did the 22nd?
22nd, I'm here.
Yeah, sounds
Love
good.
it. Perfect. All right,
5 o'clock again?
5 o'clock, yeah. Any motion to adjourn?
All right.
So moved.
Second? Rich?
Yep, second.
All right, all's in favor? You're adjourned. It is 6:03.
Have a good night.
Thank you, you guys have a good night.
Thank you.
Offline.
There you go. Aaron will be
Seriously,
proud.
and I don't, yeah, I like, seriously, I don't,